This is Sunbelt Commissioner Keith Gill, and I listen to the Funbelt Podcast.
This is the Funbelt Podcast, part of the Believe Network.
Folks, to Dusty Thibodeau of Warhawk Report, Jeremy Harper of Howl Razor, and Shane Metlin of the Daily News Record.
I think it's potentially a very good week for the Sunbelt.
But I'm just kind of going off on a random rant. It's just frustrating.
Man, you guys are in for a treat. This is our first Sunbelt morning broadcast. I mean, I don't think we have ever broadcast in the morning. It's like sunrise podcast. Shane Metlin's with me. Thibodeau's with me. We got up in the morning. We made some coffee. We're gonna roll this out, guys. How you doing this morning?
Rising.
Always rising.
I didn't make coffee. That's my problem right now. So we'll see how this goes.
You look a little zombified. That's okay. I've had now half a cup, so I'm ready to go. Tibbs informed me that he's a morning guy. He's been out chopping wood. He got in a jog, volunteered at the soup kitchen, made all the kids breakfast. He's ready to go.
Have you seen this body? Do you really think that anybody's going to believe you when you say I took a jog?
Yeah, you seem like a guy who might knock out 5 to 10 miles every morning. You can see
or
that.
5 to 10 steps.
All right, so we're not so much into exercise. Also not into exercise, at least this morning, might be the Troy Trojans, because they really got their butts handed to them last night. They're probably pretty sore about it. Shane Metlin, did you check out that game? I think it ended up, 36-0?
33.
33-0, okay.
Yeah, it could have been worse because ODU left points on the board in the first half, especially. Like, they were just marching up and down the field, had to settle for field goals because of, a bad snap in the red zone, things like that. Like, it really could have been 21-0, like, very fast in that game. And it was, I think, 13-0. So, yeah, really impressive performance by ODU, I thought.
Yeah, and Ricky Ron, even at the little halftime moment, he expressed dismay for having, or maybe it was the third quarter, dismay for having left points on the board. But I think he was pretty pleased overall. A lot of emotion in that game, people throwing hands. I was talking to Thibodeau before we got the show, and I think there's something very wrong with the Trojans, and that's with their offensive line, Tibbs. They gave up, 7 maybe sacks to ODU last night. They gave up 9 to Arkansas State. That's just not a championship line, Tibbs.
26 yards rushing.
That's bad.
If that doesn't scream that the offensive line has some woes, I don't know what does. Their leading rusher, Jarris Williams, 5 carries, 16 yards with a long of 7 yards.
Yeah,
that's 3 yards a carry.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch the game until Crowder came in, and all I did was see him run around. That poor guy never had any time to plant his feet. The running backs never had any time to get a charge going. It was just rough going for Jared Parker and those Troy Trojans, Dusty. And I think that pretty much knocks them out of contention. There has to be like a tidal wave of losses for both Arkansas State and Southern Miss for Troy to get back into that race. ODU, I think the audience mentioned it several times, Shane. If it weren't for those lost balls in those 2 games against James Madison and Coastal Carolina, maybe they'd be back in the hunt. But right now they're just playing for pride.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think, an interesting aspect of this whole thing is to see ODU go out and look that good. They've really only had like one, I think, not necessarily inexcusable performance, but you look at their losses. They lost to a JMU team that's getting some conversation for the playoff right now. They lost a competitive game against Indiana, who's one of the top 3 teams in the country. And you take out Marshall, which, I guess everybody has a bad day. Like, we're talking about an ODU team that's having a really exceptional season if you really just take out that Marshall loss. And yeah, I was just impressed. That's all. Really simple thought, but I was impressed by the Monarchs.
Yeah, so let's take a look at last week's games before we talk a little bit about basketball. It is basketball season, guys. Things are rolling. We're dribbling. But let's talk a little bit about last week's football action. I believe we already talked about Georgia Southern and Appalachian State. In fact, we were recording when that game was live. Georgia Southern ends up with a 2-point win. Appalachian State continues its kind of rebuild season, not quite getting it. They have a big game coming up. We'll talk about that. But James Madison takes care of business against Marshall, Shane Metlin. How was that?
It was, it was another one of those. Marshall, I think, has an ability to kind of disrupt what people want to do. We're talking about, them messing with App State, not App State, with ODU having a bad day. Like JMU, I think, went into that game just thinking JMU had been blowing teams out. And then when they played at Marshall, it was very competitive. I think the big thing for JMU was that they didn't fold when Marshall had the momentum, which is something JMU's done in the past. But to go play at Marshall, to go play at that 75 game, I think if you get out of there with any kind of victory, that's a good sign for your team because it's a tough place to go. And I think, I don't know that JMU was even looking to blow out Marshall in that game. I think they were looking to survive just kind of on the way that they played. And you talk about being rebuilding for App State. Marshall's in a similar position, and it seems like it's going a little bit better.
Yeah, and with Marshall too, I kind of looked at that as that was the kind of game that, James Madison's always good for at least one clunker every year. As good as they are, they always have one surprise bomb, and I thought Marshall was going to supply that bomb. Didn't happen. James Madison kept their heads, even when Marshall was scoring points in the second quarter. Another game that had a lot of divisional importance, Southern Miss and Arkansas State. I was at that game. I really enjoyed the game if it were just a game, but Arkansas State had something like 6 turnovers, which did not help. Dusty, did you see any of this game?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. I really felt like Southern Miss maybe overlooked the Red Wolves in that game. It wasn't as good of a performance as we've seen out of Huff and company. But the question that I really have is has Braylon Braxton done enough to secure Player of the Year honors, or do you think that it's Colton Joseph, knowing that he once again had 4 touchdowns this week? Braylon Braxton, has really led that surge in Hattiesburg. Which way are we voting?
I think you can also throw a bone to Alonzo Barnett from JMU. He really rebounded from what I thought was a very mediocre start, has become an offensive juggernaut for that team too. I think if you're looking for an exciting guy to give that award to, it's got to be Colton Joseph, right? He could run in touchdowns. He could throw for touchdowns. We saw him last night. At times he looked like a running back out there. He was just barreling through Trojans. I don't know. I'd like to hear what Shane Metlin has to say about that.
I think it might come down to just how the coaches want to view it. Like, are you looking for somebody who's playing in the conference championship game where, then maybe it's Braylon Braxton is your choice, because assuming that Southern Miss gets there. But I think you can make a really strong case for Colton Joseph, especially if ODU continues to do what they did last night and win out and do it in impressive fashion with him, being a true dual threat. Like you talked about the chippiness of that game. I think a lot of it just has to do with how frustrating it is to try to stop Colton Joseph. I mean, you think you got them contained in a broken play and he goes for 40 yards. And I think that was the frustration of Troy last night. He's an electric player. I think he's very deserving of it. You mentioned Alonzo Barnett. Like, that would be an interesting case if JMU wins the league, do you give it to the quarterback of the best team, which sometimes they do. But he did have a very slow start to the season. His overall numbers, his overall PFF grades and everything are not that great. I think partially because they they eased him into it after the injury, and now we're kind of seeing the real Alonzo Barnett. But I think if you view it as a whole, it's kind of hard to give him that award unless you're just saying it's got to be somebody from like our top ranked team.
Yeah, agreed. Great analysis from our only real journalist on the panel. Coastal Carolina goes in and thumps Georgia State, as they should. Coastal Carolina continues to be a threat in the East. This was after, I can't speak for you two, but I think you did as well. I think we pretty much buried the Chanticleers after they got shut out by East Carolina in week 3. And now here they are. They're 5-1 in conference. Coastal Carolina gets JMU at the end of the season. Am I right?
They do.
So if this continues, this could be a really important game.
Yeah. I mean, both teams control their destiny. Like, I think we kind of forget that Coastal could be in the championship game if they win out.
Final game was Texas State, Louisiana. Texas State continues their woeful, I would say very woeful, exit from the Sun Belt. Final score 42-39. And then, Dusty, the game de-evolves into chaos.
Yeah, and who knew that game between two teams kind of floundering and really disappointing on the year would have such a huge impact on the overall Sun Belt Conference race, with Skipper, their preseason first team all-conference player, being suspended for the rest of the season. The Red Wolves get the Cajuns coming up. Isn't that right, this week?
Yes.
And so the Red Wolves can put them at 7 losses, knowing, though, that that's not a full Cajuns team with so many suspensions coming down. Texas State, with their suspensions, they face Southern Miss. Southern Miss wins. They win the West.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know that as an Arkansas State fan, Arkansas State needs to beat the Cajuns in order to keep alive. Watching the Trojans fall to ODU was necessary for us, simply because the Trojans need to get out there. Southern Miss needs to lose to Texas State. So that's bad news. I'd rather have Skipper on the field versus Arkansas State than a totally depleted Texas State going up against Southern Miss. But yeah, there are consequences. You start throwing hands, you start embarrassing the Sun Belt like that. You know, people aren't talking about football; they're talking about that fight, and that's a little bit embarrassing.
So, Jeremy, here's one other thing. I scrolled ahead because as we were talking, asking Shane, James Madison still has their head-to-head to close out the season at Coastal Carolina. The Sun Belt, all the times, are TBA, except for Troy at Southern Miss. We're doing 24-hour football, baby. They're kicking off at 12:02 a.m. in Hattiesburg.
Wow. That's like something new. Is that a marketing ploy?
Maybe so. Rising.
All right, that's the wrap up. That was a pretty good week of Sun Belt football, but we're transitioning. We're at that odd time of year, Shane and Dusty, where basketball and football are intersecting. Right? Football always gets sort of the big exposure. They get the spotlight, but things are moving in basketball. We're kind of seeing who might have some chops, who might be contenders, and teams, quite frankly, who aren't ready to contend. We see South Alabama, and I think Marshall might both be undefeated right now, which is not surprising.
Anamati fighting Scott Crosses.
And Troy's been looking really good. They've been blowing out team, crossing into the triple digits a couple times. Those 3 teams have looked pretty good. James Madison, Arkansas State, I think, have 1 loss apiece. Shane, is that correct?
Jamie has 2.
Oh, 2 losses. Okay. I did catch a little bit of that James Madison game with, was it Lindenwood? Was that what it was? Longwood? Longwood, yes. And I think your comment at the end of the game was one Longwood, isn't without skill. but also it's the James Madison is still trying to figure stuff out with this new lineup.
Yeah. And I'll talk about this because I wonder how universal it is to like basically the entire conference. But part of the reason I take the time to drive down to a game that's like 2 hours away for me when I could have stayed home and covered a women's game is because I know like when you do that, you're not gonna have a typical press conference. You're gonna sit down probably on press row with the coach and like have a conversation you're not gonna have in front of cameras. So like, what I got from Preston Spradlin after that game was it was very, very similar to a loss at the same point in the season at Norfolk State last year. Obviously they go on, they win 20 games, they get a share of the regular season title, and it's a pretty solid season. But at that point, people are pretty disappointed, and it's the same thing over again. It's the same thing over again with 13 new players. And I asked him, like, is it really frustrating that like you're not in a better spot right now than you were a year ago because you have 13 new players? And he was like, it's not. He goes, I think he really enjoys the coaching aspect of like building together a team, even if it is a bunch of new guys and the process of it. And I wonder if the other coaches in the league feel the same way at this point in the season. Like, it's not going to be a 2-bid league. I wonder if there is a little bit of like, hey, I'm actually coaching a group and we're going to build something over the course of this. He's like, I hate it during the spring. He's like, I hate having to recruit all these guys. I hate having to negotiate deals and everything in the spring, but it doesn't frustrate me right now. And I do wonder if that's kind of like just the universal feeling across the Sun Belt, unless you're like Marshall off to a really good start, or some of these other teams. But like Arkansas State basically replaces their entire roster the same. I wonder if all the other coaches are feeling the same, because it's not a case where like, oh, we're trying to build a NCAA tournament resume in November. Like, everybody's just trying to win the league.
I will talk a little bit about Arkansas State. I got a couple points. One, I've watched a couple broadcasts, right? The JMU broadcast, for instance. I try to check out Sunbelt games when I can. And the story with the broadcasters are always the same. They always talk about how, especially in the mid majors, that turnover has become such a huge thing. Like they'll talk about almost any team and say, yeah, they're dealing with 10 new players, 7 new players, 15 new players as it is with Arkansas State. So that condition is across the board for mid majors, and which I find a little dispiriting, because it is hard as a fan. Like with Arkansas State, we have 15 new players. And we just went through a season where we got to know some of these guys, and that was our team, and we were really pumped for them. Now we've got 15 new faces that we have to like get to know. I went to the exhibition game, and I started taking photographs of the players before I realized, oh shit, this is the other team. I didn't recognize my own team. I mean, that's how crazy it is. As far as what you're saying about, trying to coach a new team. Yeah, Coach Pannone, he's got those 15 new players, and I was watching their game against Missouri State the other night, and they looked god awful. I've never seen a team look so bad, to tell you the truth, not since like the last days of Bellotto. And I was like, this team is not going anywhere. This is a god awful team, throwing balls in the stand, missing layups. Not getting back on defense. They looked disinterested. I was panicking. And they ended up winning that game by a point. They came down from 16, won that game. So, it's kind of interesting to watch teams like this gel. And I think you're right, Shane. I think coaches have different expectations with this sort of level. But on the flip side, it doesn't look like Dusty Thibodeau, this league, like Shane said, it's not going to be a too big lead. In fact, we're already seeing some pretty dismaying losses.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the surface. ULM came to my neck of the woods. Houston played Houston Christian. Fantastic first half. I think they shot something like 70-something% from the floor in the first half and put up, 12, 18 points in the second half. It was just an ugly half, just like Houston Christian had in the first half. We saw it with Southern Miss losing to Grambling. This league, I think, is still trying to find their identity, trying to get a lot of these new guys because there's so many new faces across the league that guys are still really learning how to play basketball. I mean, I saw it firsthand. Again, in that first half, MJ Russell, the Mississippi State transfer for ULM, goes out and just carries his team in the first half, but it wore him down. He didn't know how to pace himself for all 40 minutes of the game, and it showed. And then you have all these international guys that are good basketball players, but they're just not used to the physicalness of ball in the States. You have a freshman like Wiggy Ball that's really still trying to learn how to play college ball. He played some high-level AAU ball, but it's still not quite the same. So I think that you'll see ULM continue to progress as you get closer and into conference play. And I'm assuming that a lot of these other teams are kind of in the same boat and will have the same experience as well.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, Jay.
We see, like you said, like from what I've seen of the teams that I've watched this year, is nobody's playing 40 minutes of good basketball yet. like you said, it's like, ULM, they look pretty good in the first half, and then it's a completely different story in the second half. And same for Houston Christian. Like they'll be saying the same thing. JMU's saying the same thing. Like they have not played a good 40 minutes. They played some good 10-minute stretches and, multiple 10-minute stretches in the same game, but they've played really bad for 5-10 minutes too. And, I haven't watched enough of Marshall or South Alabama yet. They're both off to good starts, I think. But I think most teams, it's just, that's the hope, is like we're eventually going to put together complete games, and we're not doing it right now.
Yeah, it's really early. You see South Alabama and Troy and Marshall. Have they played exceptionally good teams right now? Probably not. But they do seem to be at least winning their games. And in Troy's case, and maybe the others too, maybe Marshall too, winning with pretty, substantial points. So I don't know. I don't know if we can look at the basketball season yet and say these three teams are going to be the better teams in the league. We'll see. Still a lot of data to collect. But speaking of data, this is the time of the podcast where we do our favorite segment of the week. Guys, are you ready for Sunbelt second?
Women's basketball.
No, not women's basketball. We do need to talk about women's basketball at some point, Dusty. We just don't have time for women's basketball right now. We got just so much stuff going on.
Do what? I mean, you got Missy Bilderback with the Fighting Warhawks of Southern Miss,
All right.
sitting at 4-0.
Chanda
3-0, ULM 3-0, James Madison even at 3-1.
Okay.
I mean, how can we not make time for the basketball that very well could have a 2-bid league this year?
Okay. All right. Well, Tibbs, do you want to do a women's basketball minute here at on Funbelt Podcast?
No, I'm good. Let's go to second short.
You heard the gong. It's time for second and short. All right, you guys know how this works. Second and short, we break down the week's action. We already broke down one game, so we don't even have to break that down for second and short. We discuss each game that's coming up for about 2 minutes. We try to keep it around there. If it's a Sunbelt East game, Shane leads. If it's a West game, Thibodeau leads. I add a little color to it. So, guys, are you ready for second and short?
Yes. Let's do it.
Why not?
Come on. It's our first morning second and short. We have never done this before. So early in the morning. All right, I'll get it started. Here we go. We already talked about the Troy Trojans and Old Dominion Monarchs. Congratulations to the Monarchs. They get their 7th win. Saturday, November 15th, the Marshall Thundering Herd. Wait a second. Do I have 8 games here?
What?
Huh?
You froze up on us.
Yeah, I might have froze up. Hang on a second. I want to make sure I got the right games queued up.
November 15th.
Oh, okay. I got confused. Okay, I'm good. I'm good. I mistook Marshall for Coastal Carolina. All right, here we go. First game of Saturday. Saturday, November 15th. The Marshall Thundering Herd. They're 4-5. They take on Georgia State. They're 1-8. Georgia State would probably rather that the season just go away. Sort of transition from a disappointing football season to what is looking like going to be a disappointing basketball season. Let me ask you this, Shane. Is there any reason to even watch this game?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's Sunbelt, of course.
It is. Marshall's working towards bowl eligibility. They're getting closer. They need a couple more wins. They have an electric quarterback in Carlos Del Rio Wilson, who's just an entertaining guy to watch. Like, he makes plays, and I think that's worth watching, especially if you turn the sound down and you don't have to listen to that train whistle at Georgia State.
Yeah, there should be like Thundering Herd effects instead. So Georgia State, it looks like they might not have the services of Cameron Brown, the quarterback that's been leading them on the field for the last couple games. Dusty Thibodeau. Do the Panthers have a chance in this game?
Always have a chance. I mean, if you look at last year, did we really think that Georgia State had a chance against Vanderbilt?
No, we didn't.
And they did it.
They
I think Georgia State could pull it off.
Okay.
But if I'm not mistaken, and I saw on the Twitter sphere, Marshall is claiming this game as their 75 game. And so if that's the case, I think that emotional high. It was last week?
Yeah. This is a road game for Marshall.
I know, and that's why I was so confused about it.
Okay. No, they had the 75 game last Saturday.
Okay, well, never mind. There goes that. Yeah, Georgia
okay,
State has no chance.
It's the first morning show. I already confused Marshall with Coastal. You've confused the 75th game. It's expected. It's morning time. We're not awake. We haven't had enough caffeine. Give us a break. Dusty, please continue.
Georgia State's going to go play on the MARTA, and Marshall's going to play football. The herd rolls. The herd wins.
I think you're right. You know what, listen, it's a game in Atlanta. It's always can be a little funny in playing the Panthers in Atlanta, but I think Marshall gets a step closer to bowl eligibility. Speaking of bowl eligibility, Appalachian State Mountaineers, they still have a chance. They've got the 4 wins. They can make this. They play James Madison Dukes. They're 8-1, 230 ESPN Plus. The Dukes are a 20-point favorite in this game. This used to be kind of a marquee game in the Sunbelt East atmosphere. This year, the Mountaineers just trying to get it together. Shane, what can we expect from this game?
That's a good question. I think, all things being equal, the 20-point spread makes sense on paper, but JMU App State games in these past few years have not always made sense on paper, like the results you get. And it's, how does JMU respond to this? Like, do they come out extremely fired up because they've had these tough losses to App, because it's a rivalry that's really developed between those two programs? And are they completely focused and take care of business? Or is this one of those things where it's like, we tighten up because we know we've lost to App a lot? Or, all this talk of if JMU wins, there's, probably College Game Day coming the next week for Washington State. And, do you get ahead of yourselves? I think it's possibly, a game that if JMU doesn't start fast, then the doubts start to creep in because of what's happened with App State in the past. But JMU should win this one. But I think it's one of those things where, like, there's a lot of other factors that are going to play into it than just how good these teams are.
Yeah, and one of those factors for Appalachian State has been quarterback play. They've kind of ping-ponged between A.J. Swan, who's had some injuries, and J.J. Cole, who had a hot start, and then there were some turnovers. Swan gives them 345 yards and a touchdown in the loss against Georgia Southern. Are we going to see maybe a more urgency and more consistency out of the Mountaineers, Dusty Thibodeau?
Nope. James Madison.
That's true. James Madison just looks really good right now. But like I said, James Madison always has at least one clunker in the Sun Belt season. Always. It always happens. So this could be it. But yeah, I think Mountaineers are going to have to play a perfect game to win this game. Also at 2:30, also on ESPN Plus, South Alabama Jaguars. They're 2-7. They take on UL. Excuse me, I must be allergic to great Sunbelt play. They take on ULM Warhawks. They're 3-6. That's important. The Jags are puzzlingly bad on both offense and defense. I don't know what's going on with Major Applewhite and his team. They've got a lot of talent. They don't have a lot of wins. Meanwhile, the Warhawks, they're so... At the beginning of the season, the goal for Coach Brian Vincent, flip that, was to win a championship. The secondary goal was to get to a bowl game. One is impossible. The second is getting tough. Dusty, are they going to win this game, or are they going to keep their bowl hopes alive?
Why is it the two teams that break our hearts the most face off? And I feel like this is where we learn about some weird, obscure NCAA rule where after the 20th OT, they just call it a draw.
Should they call this game a draw?
I mean, you might as well. No, look, the Warhawks needed the bye last week. They've been beat up. They've been mentally, physically drained. And they got the bye week. So you got to hope that they're refreshed, they're ready to go, and able to kind of keep that seventh loss at bay, get win number 4, and just kind of use these last 3 games as really a 3 one-game seasons to try to get to that bowl game, which is huge, right? Sure, the goal is to win the Sun Belt, to win the West, but just getting to a postseason bowl game at this point is absolutely huge for that next step of ULM progressing. I think they get it done this week against South Alabama.
Yeah, so I don't know the heart of Brian Vincent, but I do know that there are probably some coaching jobs up there in the carousel that probably attracted his eye. And going to a bowl game would probably help out that process. Don't you think, Shane Metlin?
Yeah, I mean, probably if that is the case. I'm not gonna put him somewhere else next year without really knowing the situation. But like, I think it is really interesting the way it breaks down for ULM. Like, this is a game they probably should win at home, and then you're looking at winnable games in the next 2 against those teams we talked about who are depleted because of the suspensions. Like that, despite just being 3-5 or 3-6 right now, like that bowl eligibility is within reach. I mean, it's legitimately a goal, and I think this is a huge one for ULM. I think they're going to come out fired up and take care of a South Alabama team that really just doesn't have the same level of excitement to play for.
Yeah, and another thing for the Warhawks, though, which this is the stumbling block that's been true for almost every game. In the last 5 games, the Warhawks have scored single-digit points. They've got to find some offense. As much as, I feel like that Warhawks defense has talent. They can go up against any team in the Sun Belt and do well, but they've got to find a way to put points on the board. Honestly, I think the Warhawks might be a better team, but I think the Jags should just score more points. So I'm leaning towards Jags on this.
Thanks, Jeremy.
I'm sorry. The Warhawks need to prove that they could get the ball in the end zone. Texas State Bobcats, 3-6. They take on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. That's also at 2:30. Everything's happening at 2:30. ESPN Plus. The Eagles of Gold, only a 6.5-point favorite. I was tempted, guys, to reopen my Bet Online account.
Not a sponsor, so
Not a sponsor. Put $1,000 into the account and bet on this line because does Vegas know that the Bobcats lost all their guys after the fight against Cajuns? I don't know. But Thibodeau, what kind of game are we going to see out of this?
This is the icing on the cake, the candles on the cake, whatever else. This is where Huff gets to beat his chest black and blue, or in this case, black and yellow, saying, we're going back to the ship. They're going to roll Texas State. Just too many losses, too much apathy, too much suspension to really be able to compete in this game. Give me the Eagles to soar.
Yeah. It's one of those things where G.J. Kinney seems to have, just kind of like South Alabama, seems to have a lot of talent on that team, but there's just something missing, something not clicking. A lot of it's the defensive play. I was watching a little bit of that Texas State game against the Cajuns. The Cajuns just found themselves wide open a lot. They were running through that defensive line a lot. I can't pinpoint where it is, but we talked a little bit about Braylon Braxton, Shane. That is he the leading contender for Sunbelt Player of the Year? Is this where Braylon Braxton kind of puts the bow on top of the box?
I think so. I think we're going to talk about this. I think in this game and one that's coming up is I do wonder if there are some teams that are watching ESPN during the week and stuff and being like, they only talk about JMU, they only talk about the playoffs, where Southern Miss is having a really great season. They are in contention for the Sun Belt Championship. They're a factor in this game. I think they're going to come out they're a factor, not just game, in this race for the league. And I think they're going to come out and show it against a Texas State team that, if you're a Bobcats fan, you can only hope that the fight and everything else was rock bottom, and now you're going to start clawing your way back up. But I think that Texas State is just kind of cooked at this point.
Why do you think that Sunbelt coaches like Bob Chesney, G.J. Kinney, even Bryant Vincent, that they get the attention of, these guys might go up and get a big contract with a Power 4 team, right? But that conversation never seems to touch Charlie Huff. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, I do wonder if it's there and maybe just, I don't know who's his agent. I think a lot of that sometimes has to do with if there's somebody who's kind of putting your name out there for you, whether you want them to or not, then, I think he kept it pretty the whole time last year when it was pretty much known he was leaving Marshall. Even then, I think the conversation stayed pretty reasonable. I don't know. Is that a good word for it?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I just think maybe he stays pretty honest with his guys, and maybe he's not looking to move after 1 year. Who knows?
That's funny too, because the most noise I heard about Charlie Huff leaving was not last year, but the year before, and they had that kind of disappointing season. But at the preseason, it was like, this is a guy that's going to go places. He's got things going, and then they had kind of a down year, and that just sort of killed all momentum for that. So I don't know why Charlie Huff doesn't get in that conversation, because if you win a Sun Belt title East and a Sun Belt title and then go to the West and do the same thing, how is that not a huge story? That's a big story. You're right. Southern Miss, I could see them taking on Texas Bobcats and making a statement, not just for themselves, but for their coach. Last game of the week, Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. It's surprising. It's surprising. Yeah, surprising to us. 6-3, right? It's surprising to us because we thought that they were cooked. They take on the Georgia Southern Eagles. They're 4-5. They still have aspirations for a bowl game. They can still get in there. 5 p.m. ESPN Plus. Eagles kind of a surprising 2.5 favorite. I know they're playing in Statesboro. It's always tough to play in Statesboro, but I gotta ask you, Shane, are the Eagles really favored to win this game against the Chants?
Yeah, I think Statesboro is the one and only reason they are favored, because for some reason teams like just really struggle down there. But Coastal's offense has been explosive. They've been great. And like I said about Southern Miss, Coastal's got to be asking themselves, why isn't anybody talking about us? We could win the East. Like, all we have to do is win out and we win the East. It's in our hands. Like, why are we not mentioned as part of this race? I think they're going to be pretty fired up. I think they're finding themselves at the right time, and I do think they're going to go down to Statesboro and get a victory. Maybe they're not going to score 45 plus like they have been, but I think they're going to get it done.
Yeah, they actually, in the broadcast last night on the ESPN broadcast, Coastal Carolina and Tim, the coach, both got shout-outs to say what a year that they had. So there is some talk about the Chanticleers, but maybe not enough. Maybe because they just look so bad against East Carolina, and then they come into the Sun Belt and have they kind of get it together. Dusty, the Chants have won, I think, 4 straight. If they won 4 straight, they've won 5 straight. They've just won a lot of games. And part of that has to do with their running quarterback, Samari Collier, who's taken over for Tim Hudson and really done a good job. What do you expect to see out of this game?
I think the Chants have been definitely the surprise team overall in the Sun Belt. But I don't know if they have really been able to shine as brightly as they have at home as they have on the road. Going to Statesboro and the magic of the creek is definitely something that is tough. So yeah. I really think that this is going to be a big trial by fire for Collier, because you got to remember, a lot of the Chants fans weren't a big fan of his coming in because he wasn't really the traditional Coastal Carolina quarterback, but he's getting the job done. So I think a lot of guys are really starting to kind of catch on and get behind him. We'll see, but I think the Chants keep this train rolling.
Yeah, I think Tim Beck has done a pretty good job holding it together. Coastal Carolina has a history of, at the end of the year, losing a big game and then just sort of mailing it in for the rest of the season. I don't think that this is the game. I think Coastal slides by the Eagles. They keep in contention and keep the Sun Belt East as interesting as possible. All right, Tibbs, I'm gonna throw it out to you. Who are the 2 teams not playing this week?
Arkansas State.
Yeah. Ding.
Technically the Cajuns.
That's right. It's the Cajuns, and the Red Wolves are taking the week off, so we won't be seeing them. I believe they play next Thursday. ESPN coming to that game, so that should be a lot of fun. And guys, that's the end of Second Short. Well done. You did it again. I'm proud of you guys. Well done.
Now for the even bigger and
the big
better.
Yeah.
Plugs, promos, and parting shots. Shane, since you are always the most enlightenful person when it comes to this, please give us your plug, promo, parting shot.
Only have a plug today because it's too early to think of the other stuff. So, just follow me on X, Twitter, whatever it's called, Shane_DNR Sports, and you can find various stuff that I've written or talked about on podcasts or whatever, like, out there.
That was inspirational, Tibbs.
That was a plug.
I'm at a loss for words. Jeremy, what do you have?
I don't know if I can follow that poetry, but I'll give it a whirl. I got a parting shot. After the Southern Miss game with Arkansas State, there was a lot of discussion about attendance. I think there was an expectation amongst fans that game should have been better attended. And honestly, it was kind of a late arriving game. It was 11 a.m. I thought the attendance was fine, to tell you the truth. Especially, I know it was a big game that had that big implications. But in Arkansas, this is hunting season. It's November. There's always factors that contribute to that. But attendance is something that throughout the group of 5, group of 6, has been an issue. It's going to continue being an issue. And it's not because of the programs or the fans, which we keep weaponizing against each other. How many times have you gone on the Twitters and you've seen one fan base snarking at another for how many people were in the stands? It happens all.
Drop down.
What? I'm sorry. What?
That's always the comment. You should drop down. Look, there's
Oh,
nobody
yeah.
there.
Yeah, look, nobody's showing up. And we kind of hurt each other with that conversation. And to tell you the truth, it's much higher powers that's affecting this. We are no longer part of the conversation, guys. I know JMU is in the top 25 for the AP. They're not top 25 in the poll that matters, though. And quite frankly, nobody in the group of five seems to matter anymore. Oh yeah, sure, the Bulls, they finally got a little bit of a eyebrow raise from the committee, but they don't care. Nobody, the whole system now is aligned to where fans are being forced to hate their own programs and being funneled into the Big Ten and the SEC. If you look back at 2011, 2012, everybody in the college community in the FBS had a shot at a title. Was it likely? No. But if you used your imagination, you could see your team actually playing for something relevant, something big. Just as much as LSU or Arkansas or Ohio State, the stakes were the same. And that's what brought fans in, because they had this belief that their team could matter. We don't have that anymore. It's not there. So unless something changes, unless there is some sort of action that puts us back at the big boys table, we're going to see a decline in attendance. And we got to stop blaming each other and start pointing to a finger at who is making this possible. It's ESPN, it's Fox Sports, it's who's ever leading the SEC, who's ever leading the Big Ten. They are making us irrelevant, and we're falling for it by talking about attendance. Let's stop doing that. Let's stop playing their game, and let's get this done. And that's my parting shot.
Did anybody show up Saturday, Jeremy?
Yeah, I was there.
And do you and your brother count as two in the stands, or are y'all one?
We count as four. We've gained so much weight.
Here's my lack of shout out. I hate this new damn Twitter, X, whatever, direct messaging, chat bullshit where I got to set a pin. I'm still getting messages from earlier this week when Shane goes, "Hey, are we recording tonight?" It's still coming through. No, Shane, we're not recording tonight. Please fix the damn platform before I go crazy.
That's your shout out?
Yeah.
I like it, actually, because it affects all of us, because it sucks right now. Get it done, Elon Musk. Fix something.
Does it suck more than attendance or more than the Red Wolves?